I want to also ask you, can I also ask you about some of the issues you've raised in your submission in relation to the involvement of trade unions? You've said here that in reference to the Queensland government, they have best practice industry conditions where you can have things like paid union training leave for union delegates. Delegates have the right to conduct union business during work hours. They have delegate facilities, including employer-provided phones, iPads, office facilities, union rights to promote themselves in the workplace, so on and so forth. So what are you worried about here? Are you concerned this is going to become embedded in the federal arrangements?
I think our concern is that that is already starting to happen. There was a significant decision last Friday in the Fair Work Commission where multi-employer bargaining was imposed on 3 different coal companies who have very different operations. One of them is a FIFO operation, another is near a town where people come and go and drop their kids, pick up their kids from school. Very, very different, but they were ordered by the Commission to negotiate enterprise bargains across different operations. And this goes to the heart of the point I made before about why productivity needs to be at the heart of all these approaches. Productivity is what drives higher wages and higher returns. And if we want to continue to have the higher wages which the mining industry does pay above the average, and that's well documented, to continue that and to continue to be able to encourage investors, the need to have the flexibility of operating your enterprise based on the conditions and opportunities you have, based on the technologies you can introduce, that sort of flexibility is being eroded year after year.
Okay, so I guess the concern that someone like me would have, who is conducting a legislation review, is that this is an endeavour to try and unionise parts of the workforce which are not unionised, and an endeavour to effectively promote the idea of giving money to employee or union organisations, which is lead in the saddlebags for the economy. And so I've conducted a lot of these inquiries over the years, and I've sat on a lot of them, and I have to say I was surprised to read in your submission on page 7 where you say that the workplace relations elements of the community benefit principles in paragraph 10 of the bill are unnecessary and will be economically damaging. They are not about improving working conditions, but are a government-mandated attempt at union control, so on and so forth. So that is very strong language. So you obviously share that concern that this Future Made in Australia agenda is more about paying off vested interests than it is about trying to ensure the prosperity of the nation.
I think, Senator, that we're making a specific point about that issue as it interacts with other pieces of legislation. I wouldn't then extrapolate it to say that we don't think there isn't merit in what is trying to be achieved in Future Made in Australia. But it goes to our point that unless you have an eagle eye on the productivity impacts of what you're doing, the way that all your other pieces of legislation interact with the investment story, then you run the risk that you won't achieve what you're trying to do with this piece of legislation.
But when you say government-mandated attempt at union control, what do you mean by that?
What we're referring to there is if these framework principles were further extrapolated to impose situations as I just described in the decision that was made last Friday, where the actual terms and conditions of an enterprise are being dictated. Now, the lines of legislation don't mandate that in their words. What our fear is, the combination with the other decisions that are being made will combine to create that fear. That's why our strong language. We remain very concerned about that.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. So My understanding from today's hearing is that the union movement and potentially the government want there to be a design feature here where unions must be engaged for there to be a payment or a grant or a subsidy under the Future Made in Australia agenda. Is that your understanding?
We would be urging the government to make sure that it is not done that way.
Do you fear that it might be?
Yes.
Okay, and if it was, and the whole of the future of the Future Made in Australia agenda was conditioned on being involved with a union, then what would that mean for your sector?
If in adopting this framework the government went down that path, which is contrary to what they've been saying they are going to do, it would materially affect the ability of companies to engage creatively and innovatively with their workforce and create the highest productivity in their workplace, which is essential for both return on investment and higher wages.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying that if we had compulsory unionisation of Future Made in Australia projects, that there would actually be lower productivity, fewer jobs, lower investment.
If that's how it was implemented, yes.